You made it. You bought the car, the apartment, the watch, maybe even the espresso machine that talks. You finally arrived. And yet, something still stings at the end of the day. Something still pulls at you in the quiet, when no one's asking you for anything. It's not the car payment, though that hurts too. It's something deeper. A kind of ache. Subtle, like forgetting what you walked into the kitchen for. But in your soul. And that question sneaks in. Why doesn't this feel like enough? Here's what nobody tells you. You can change your clothes, your bank account, even your jawline, but you can't out-earn your emotional wounds. Because what you were chasing wasn't success. Not really. You were chasing something older. Something more primal. You were trying to escape your past. You were trying to outrun the little voice that says, you better earn it or they'll leave. Psychologists call it attachment theory. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth figured out that how we were loved, or not loved, as kids becomes the blueprint for how we connect as adults. It's like software installed before you knew how to read. If love was inconsistent, we learned to adapt, to please, to perform, to make ourselves small or perfect or funny, just to stay close. So what do we become? Adults who don't rest. Adults who hustle not because they're ambitious, but because rest makes them anxious. Adults who get promotions and then immediately feel like frauds. We think we're building confidence, but often we're just polishing our coping mechanisms. Imagine a child who only got attention when they aced a test or didn't cry too loud. That child grows into the adult who's terrified of stillness, who fills silence with achievements, who throws money at the wound and wonders why it keeps bleeding. We talk a lot these days about inner child work. Some people think it's just sitting on the floor with crayons. It's not. It's recognizing that a part of you never stopped waiting for the hug you never got, the apology that never came, the moment when someone would finally say, you don't have to earn this love. That part still lives inside you, and honestly, it's probably the one who just panic bought that $2,000 desk chair. This is where the healing begins. And no, it doesn't begin on a yacht. Bessel van der Kolk put it plainly, the body keeps the score. That means your nervous system remembers the stress, the rejection, the emotional roller coaster. Even if your brain filed it away in the "we don't talk about that" folder. Trauma isn't just what happened, it's how you adapted to what happened. And if your body learned to brace for love or panic at intimacy, it's not going to unlearn that just because you have premium health insurance now. So what do? We get tired, we burn out, we smile through the exhaustion. And maybe, just maybe, we hit the wall, the moment where even the achievements can't keep us distracted. The moment we realize our dream life is beautiful, but built on our own pain. Carl Jung called this the tragedy of the false self, the persona we build to be accepted. It's charming, it's successful, it gets a lot of likes on LinkedIn. But it's not you. It's the version of you that made it through a childhood where authenticity wasn't safe. So eventually you look around and ask, wait, whose life is this? And the answer hits. It's the life that scared kid inside you built, hoping that if they were impressive enough, they'd finally be okay. But here's the turn. This isn't the end of the story. It's the start of coming home. Because you can still meet that inner child. You can still say what no one said. You're enough now. Even when you're not producing. Even when you're just sitting still. No amount of luxury can give you that. That kind of safety isn't bought. It's remembered. It's built slowly with attention, with honesty, with therapy and time and quiet mornings where you let yourself feel without fixing. And maybe a little humor along the way. Because healing without humor is like a salad without dressing. Technically good for you, but hard to swallow. Let's talk about the breakdown. No, not the kind where you dramatically quit your job via karaoke machine. I mean the quiet one. The moment where you're sitting in a room full of everything you thought you wanted, and you still feel hollow. The moment your expensive coffee tastes like burnt air, your luxury mattress feels like cardboard, and your schedule's full but your heart isn't. That moment, that's the invitation. Because success without self-awareness is just self-abandonment in a nicer outfit. We live in a culture that confuses peace with perfection. We think the goal is to get so flawless that no one can criticize us. So we grind. We perform. We post curated highlights and call it a life. But deep down, most people aren't thriving. They're surviving with better lighting. And for the high achievers, for the ones who turned pain into performance, there's an even more exhausting reality. We built our identities on being useful, productive, impressive, which means every moment of stillness feels like a threat. Because if I'm not being admired, who am I? If I'm not helping, do I still matter? If I say no, will they leave? This is where the concept of fawning comes in, a lesser-known trauma response. Not fight, not flight, not freeze. Fawn, the compulsive need to appease, to say yes, to stay agreeable. It's a survival strategy, especially for those who grew up around unpredictable adults. If love felt like a test, you learned how to pass it, with a smile. But here's the kicker. Even when your circumstances change, your wiring doesn't. That's why the millionaire still panics when someone's disappointed in them. That's why the CEO still can't say no without feeling like a bad person. That's why the overgiver gets praised for their generosity, while quietly resenting everyone they save. Because beneath the kindness, there's fear. That fear says, if I stop being useful, I'll be alone. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the only way to find real connection is to stop performing? What if the people meant for you can only find you when you're being you? Not your achievements, not your resume, not your perfectly crafted personality. This is the uncomfortable part, the part where healing feels like loss, where you start saying no and people pull away, where you set boundaries and get labeled difficult, where you stop performing and realize some relationships were only there because of the performance. It hurts, but it's holy, because every time you choose yourself, even in small ways, you break the spell. You remind your nervous system, we don't have to hustle for love anymore. It might start with a sigh, with a refusal, with a deep breath in a room that expects your usual smile. It might feel weird, clunky, even rude, but it's real, and real is rare. So when the old habits come knocking, the need to explain, to fix, to overextend, pause. Ask yourself, is this kindness or fear? Because true kindness doesn't cost you yourself. And if that scares you, good. It means you're getting close to the truth. So, what happens when you finally stop saying yes to everything? At first, it feels wrong, like putting your shoes on the wrong feet. You say no to someone, and your whole nervous system lights up like you just committed social arson. You expect consequences, rejection, anger, abandonment. You check your phone 20 times waiting for the fallout. But then nothing happens, or at least nothing catastrophic. Maybe someone gets annoyed. Maybe someone doesn't understand. But you're still here, breathing, safe. And suddenly you realize your no didn't destroy anything worth keeping. That's the paradox. The more you honor your truth, the more your life starts to reflect it. Yes, some people leave, but those are the ones who only stayed because you made things easy for them. When you stop people-pleasing, you don't lose friends. You lose roles, scripts, masks, and in that empty space, real connection has room to grow. This is where the real richness shows up. Not in your income, but in your inner life. You start liking your own company. You start trusting your own voice. You start noticing the difference between a life that looks good and a life that feels good. Psychologist Carl Rogers talked about unconditional positive regard, the kind of love that doesn't demand performance. Most of us have never experienced it, but here's the magic. Once you start giving it to yourself, your entire energy changes. You stop attracting relationships based on utility. You start attracting ones based on truth. And that's when you get to rest. Not the Netflix binge kind, the soul kind, the kind of rest that comes from knowing you're enough, that your worth isn't fragile, that you don't have to outwork your wounds anymore. It's not glamorous. There's no trophy for it, but it's peace. And peace, my friend, is the one luxury they don't sell. So go ahead. Say no. Cancel the plan. Speak your truth. Let the chips fall. And when the panic comes, because it will, take a breath. Smile. Maybe even laugh. Because you're not falling apart. You're falling back into yourself. And that's what wealth really looks like. The healing starts not when you're finally rich, but when you finally remember. You don't have to be impressive to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to be safe. You just have to be you. And that by itself is enough.